I want to take the time now to introduce Rob and Caroline. So they are a couple who moved from Nova Scotia to Kimberley, BC 6 years ago. And as an avid bird watcher on Rob's part and an avid gardener on Caroline's part, they have ventured and put all of their efforts in their free time into creating a backyard space that welcomes wildlife, such as birds, into their beautiful backyard. And so they're going to take us through that journey and how they were able to transform their backyard into a space that I understand welcomes dozens of different types of birds every single year that Rob gets to take photos of and now share with us. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Rob and Caroline. Thank you, guys.
I'll just get There we go. So we transformed our backyard into virtually a very private sanctuary. And it's taken some time to do that. So what to do? We didn't know. The trouble with buying a house in January in Kimberley is you really have no idea what's underneath all the snow. But we didn't know what we were going to be working with. And on the right-hand side, you'll see some pictures of the yard as it was once the snow was gone. Other than there was a very rickety fence along the back where you're seeing the dark brown fence now. That was our first job, was to replace the falling down fence with a good sturdy fence. We stained it dark, and then that just begged for, guess what? Plants. So it was a very uninspiring, very neglected space to start with. So the first year, we excavated a 10-foot wide swath of ground along the fence line, and it's roughly 25 feet long. So 10 feet wide, 25 feet long. We brought in about 10 yards of soil to create that first garden bed that you're seeing in the picture there. I apologize, it's a little bit overexposed, that photo, but it was a sunny day. So after that, after we had the soil in, the fun part starts. We decided what we needed to plant. Because we're nature lovers, Rob loves to watch birds. I like to garden. So we chose to incorporate some native plants along with a wide variety of fruiting, flowering species to attract birds. That was our main goal, was to bring birds into the yard. Many of the plants we chose are very quick growing because we wanted to fill that space as quickly as possible. Now, even though they're quick growing, they don't require a lot of maintenance, maybe a little bit of touch-up pruning, but for the most part, we're not doing heavy pruning. Okay, all of the plants are hardy to this area. For the most part, we chose plants that were hardy to zone 3 just to be on the safe side. A few of them are hardy to zone 4. And so far, they've all been just fine. So our first planting was a mountain ash tree because they get the beautiful flower heads, and then of course berries in the fall, and the berries hold over to the spring and the birds love them. Okay. In addition to that, we added 3 different varieties of 9 barks to add some color, and again they flower and have berries in the fall. They're shrubby, so they fill the space fairly quickly as well. We added a flowering honeysuckle. They have long red tubular flowers, and that's for the benefit of all the hummingbirds. They like those tubular flowers to feed from. And of course, the standard forsythia for early spring flower. They have lovely bright yellow flowers. They're one of the first things to come into bloom. And flowers in the garden early on, the birds see the color of the flowers, they come in to check things out. Okay, and all of this was enough for the first summer. It was actually a lot of work moving all that ground, deciding on the plants, getting them planted, and getting them in place and stabilized. And as we hoped, as soon as we started putting in those plantings, some birds started to arrive. So that was awesome. We were doing the right thing. There's another shot of the plants as they've started to fill out over the summer area or the summertime. These two columnar cedars on the right-hand side of the photograph, they were already in the yard, so we're working around those. So by the following spring, we had a better sense of what was filling in the garden, where there was some space that we needed to add a few things just to fill in space, round things out. So we added a sea buckthorn, and the sea buckthorn, it's fairly light colored, and it's right in the middle of the photograph. That shrub has a lot of really, really fine little dense branches, and we have discovered it is the favorite place for the birds to perch. We've seen as many as, maybe a dozen or so birds in that shrub all at one time. And it produces berries in the fall, and the birds go nuts over those berries. So yeah, we're doing that. Then we also added a dwarf crabapple tree, again for the apples, which the robins enjoy in the spring. A couple of hardy roses just for fun. A muckle plum tree. And some asters for fall color, and a few bulbs in the spring. So that was where we were at. We felt we had that first portion of the yard finished. And by the way, our yard is not large. The area that we planted, the dimensions of that are 38 feet long and only 22 feet wide. So we're not talking about an acre here. It's a tiny urban kind of yard. So anyone can do this. So we got that first bit done. We're absolute suckers for punishment, so why would we stop there? Once the garden bed was well mulched, we excavated on the opposite side, up against the back of the house, an 8-foot stretch of ground. And that's the slide that I've got here now. Okay, and we left in between the two beds a little pathway of lawn, about 10 feet wide, easy to maintain, quick to mow, just as a walking path through the yard. Okay, so in this new narrower bed, we started off with 2, again, columnar cedars, just to match the 2 on the other side, only these 2 are a bit smaller. And that frames the yard, and it provides a visual break towards the neighbor's home. Okay. And beyond that, where we've excavated the garden, there is a asphalt RV parking spot, which is about 14 feet wide. So we hadn't touched that at all at this point, because who wants to dig up asphalt, right? So next to the cedar, we put in a tamarix. They're fast growing. They grow quite tall, and their foliage is very ferny and open and loose. So it gives a lovely focal point and a bit of a visual break towards the neighbor's house. And it also gives a little depth to the garden. Other plants that we included on this side were carragana. Again, they get little berries. A mock orange, some dogwood, bugbane, heucherias, which are a forest plant, and the hummingbirds love those. A black lace elder, which is the shrub in the center of the photograph. And a few ornamentals. So again, that was enough for that year, moving yards and yards of soil, because we had to get 10 more yards for that side. Okay, so now a wide variety of birds are starting to enjoy the yard. And to encourage them to come, we placed a variety of different types of feeders. There's some tubular feeders, there's a Niger seed feeder, a little platform feeder, all kinds of different feeders with different types of seeds to attract different birds. So by this point, the third spring, the plants are starting to settle in, and we continue to flesh out both of these garden beds. We added sumacs, barberries, a toba hemlock tree, toba standing for Manitoba. This tree was developed in Manitoba for colder climates. Okay. And you know, this didn't seem to be enough work at all. So we decided on that asphalt parking plan, we would put in a raised vegetable bed. So here's a photograph of that. And it's 6 feet wide, 24 feet long, and 2 feet deep. And as you can see, it's very, very productive. So again, the birds actually enjoy the vegetable garden as well. We've got a few herbs going on there. It softens the look of the asphalt because we're not ever going to park a boat or a motor home on it. So it seemed to us to be a good use for that spot. So in addition, we also added a bird bath. First winter we didn't heat it, but then we decided, well, what's the point of having a bird bath if they can't access it in the wintertime when they need the water? So we did put in a little heating element into the bird bath. We also improved some of our front gardens, just expanding the flower beds. And that gave the birds a spot to rest while they're traveling between homes. Okay, so on their way to the backyard, they could stop and enjoy some of the shrubbery and berries that we have in the front yard as well. Of course, with the deer in the area, we were restricted in what we could plant in the front because, you know, they eat everything that there is. All right, so moving along then. In year 4, the birds are now nesting in the cedar trees. And they're enjoying the cover that those provide. And they're perching and enjoying the shrubbery throughout the whole backyard. Ground feeding birds are scratching in the mulched beds. We put some mulch on to help retain moisture in the soil. So the robins and some of the sparrows, etc., they love to dig through that to find insects and any spilled bird seed. Of course, in the spring, as I said, the birds enjoy the crab apples and the ash berries that were left over from the previous fall. In autumn, of course, the sea buckthorn has very tiny orange berries, and they just love those. Those berries don't last very long on the plant at all. Other wildlife, in addition to the birds, we've attracted bees and butterflies, the occasional chipmunk, and we even had a visitor by a raccoon. Now, raccoons are lovely to see, however, they do ransack the bird feeders. So welcome, fun to see, but not so welcome otherwise. He was back 3 or 4 times, and we just kind of banged our hands and away he went down the street. But it was kind of fun to see a raccoon in the yard. So due to the large amounts of soil that we needed to purchase, we did not buy premium soil mix for the garden. We just got kind of whatever we could get from local suppliers, reasonably inexpensively. But what that meant in the long run was we needed to do a lot of soil improvement. So we added peat moss, organic matter, fertilizers, just to give things a real good leg up. So our backyard is on the north side of the house, and as a result, it takes a little bit longer to warm up in the spring. That has not been a detriment, though. The birds still come, and you know, it is what it is. Nature takes its own course. The other challenge that we did not consider at the time is for the bed that's right up against the back of the house, the heat reflects off it in the summer, especially when it's really hot out, and that can really dry out the soil and the plants. So we decided to install a sprinkler system. With piping just laying on the ground, we cover it up with mulch and then just some sprinkler heads that we have on timers. And that has really resolved that. The reflected light off the house, though, meant that I had to move a few of the more shade-preferring plants to another area because it was just a bit too bright and too hot for them there. So certification. Canadian Wildlife Federation does have a program where you can apply to have your area certified as a wildlife-friendly habitat. So we decided with all the activity in the yard, we figured that we should just go ahead and try this out and see if we could get the certification through the Canadian Wildlife Federation. And we had heard about it back on our farm in Nova Scotia, but of course, being farmers, you never have time to apply for things. So I just kind of let it slip, but this was the perfect opportunity to do so. So what they require in order to get the certification is a detailed list of all the plants in the yard, indicating which are native, which are ornamental, and a list of any vegetable plants that you might have. You also need to provide a listing of the, the animal life that's attracted to the area, wildlife aids that you're using. So wildlife aids would be things like feeders, water features, bird baths, vegetables, etc. Supporting photos must be submitted. They have a look at the photos. And then CWF reviews all of the material. And if they agree with what you've done and approve that, yes, this is a wildlife-friendly habitat, they issue you a certificate and a decal to display on a window. We put ours on the garage door. And then for a small fee, you can order from them a weatherproof outdoor plaque. So this is a photograph here of the actual plaque itself. And the only thing we have yet to decide is where to hang it outside. There's a few options. So in order to access the Canadian Wildlife Certification, you just go to their website. It's fairly easy to find the application information right on their landing page. And you can either download the forms and mail that in along with physical copies of photographs, or you can complete the forms right online, attach your photographs, and just submit the whole thing online, which is how I did that. It took maybe 3 weeks for them to get back to us with approval and our first certificate and the decal. And then the lawn plaque or the yard plaque took a little bit longer to come. So it was very gratifying to have that certification. It kind of helped out with just our intent to bring more wildlife into the yard, and it validated it a bit. Okay, so specific birds and plants. This section, I just have some more clear photos of the plants that we planted with a little bit more information about each one, alternating with some bird photos, some of the birds that we've had in the yard. Okay, so the bird photos, most of them Rob has taken himself through the window, so some of them are not super high quality because we don't want to go out there and scare the birds away for this. And plant photos, instead of taking all the pictures myself, I just found them open sourced on the internet, and that gives better ideas of the plants that we're using. So we had 98 species so far of birds in the yard. Common birds, there were 34 species, regular visitors, 6, uncommon visitors, 7, and irregular visitors, so common birds, but not typically all the time. We've had 8 rare species, so that gives us a total of 81 viewed in the yard itself. We've seen 11 different birds from the yard flying over, and 6 birds that we have not seen but have heard calling. So the bird watchers will understand that. Rob?
So this is probably our highlight bird from a regular bird, this lazuli bunting. It's kind of the fourth bird that's blue in our area, because of course people know of the bluebirds and blue jays. So I guess five because there's the two blue jays. So this is the lazuli bunting. It's a very colorful songbird. Actually, it just arrived this last week into our area. It's a member of the finch family, enjoys your sunflower seed, millet, and most other seeds. We have been having one pair show up every year for the last 3 years now, and it likely nests nearby on the rails to trail system, which we're about a block away from, and because we see quite a few of them along that trail here when we go for our walks.
It's one of our favorite birds. It's very, very lovely. Okay, so I mentioned earlier different nine barks that we have used. So we chose 3 to add some color, and there's 2 here of the 3. So one is very dark purpley sort of a color. It's very dramatic looking with their white balled up flowers. And then we also chose one that's very amber orange goldy color, which just brightens, it looks so bright against that very dark brown fence. So it creates a lovely lovely color variation in the yard. And then the third one we installed was just sort of a lime green. So we've got a range of colors from dark to very light on the 9 barks. And they do have these lovely, lovely flower balls that the birds do like to check out.
This one is one that most people should recognize. It's the American goldfinch, and it's sitting right here contrasted against our blossoming crabapple tree. Year-round visitor, so quite relatively common. Similar size to the pine siskins, which people may also know. Sunflower and Niger seed are its 2 preferred seeds, but it does eat others as well. In this wintertime, though, the male isn't this bright yellow with the black face. It has a more softer yellowish green plumage.
Sea buckthorn, this is the favorite in the whole yard for the birds. So you can see there the densely packed small berries, and the berries are very, very small. And you can see that the shrub kind of spreads, and there's lots and lots of little branches where the birds love to perch. They get lots of cover in there, so they feel quite safe sitting in that particular shrub. And they grow quite tall. We have not pruned it back at all. We're just letting it grow and fill in the space.
This is an uncommon visitor. It's related to the robin. This is our varied thrush, and it's more of a high altitude species, but it does during winter and spring. Those that are around will visit the yards. Like a robin, of course, it's hunting for worms, it's scratching in the mulch for insects, and it does also eat fruit off the crabapple tree, and if there's any mountain ash berries around, it is still around as well. And it will visit the bird bath as well, like the robin does, and take a good splash.
Mountain ash, I think we're all probably pretty familiar with the mountain ash. They can grow very large, as you know, so we chose a dwarf variety for our smaller yard. Of course, we do see them wild throughout all of Canada, and the berries do last throughout winter, and mostly the birds like them late fall, and if there's any left in the spring, they devour them in no time at all.
Another relatively common visitor to our yard is the spotted towhee. They don't usually overwinter here, but that they could. There's been the odd case. And it's like a large dark-eyed junco, but it's got much stronger black coloring, that bright red eye, and the orange sides on it. And it has a large variety of calls. I don't think I've actually ever seen it on the bird feeders. It's always scratching what everybody else has dropped. But you know, they might, you still could possibly see it on a feeder as well, but it's more habit, and it's a little bit shyer. It likes to hide in the bushes more, and is more prone to flying away if you kind of open into the yard, walk into the yard. So.
Okay, the honeysuckle. They come in various color options. We've got an orange one in the front yard. Here we have a pink one in the backyard. And as I mentioned earlier, they have long tubular flowers, and the hummingbirds really appreciate those long tubular flowers. They get their little bills right in there and look for nectar. And they're quite hardy. And again, this one will shrub up and become quite full.
So this is the Eurasian collared dove. It's relatively common year-round species here now. 10 years ago, they were very rare and not even seen here at all 20 years ago. They've got introduced into Florida, I think about 50 years ago, and stayed there for about 20 years. And then they've just slowly spread their way, or actually quite quickly spread their way all the way up into Western Canada throughout the States. So quite similar to the mourning dove outside that it has this black collar around the edge of the neck is one of its main things. And this particular pair was sat on our fence for more than an hour, nuzzling each other and just cooing at each other. And that was after they had been mating. So it was kind of nice to see the birds, actually, in a sense, being together. So we've been talking a lot, of course, about bird seed and feeders. So this is just a typical sunflower seed feeder. It's got a kind of a very squarey diamond-shaped mesh on it. It's a very specific feeder. Pretty much black oil sunflower seeds are your must for your bird yard, for your bird seed in your yard, because pretty much every bird eats them. They're really high oil, great for winter energy and protein. Another one that I've talked about is Niger seed, which attracts the small finches like the pine siskins, goldfinches, and also a winter species called red poles. Dark-eyed junkers also will eat Niger seed. Typically, I will take down the Niger seed feeders once the spring siskins leave and not put them back up again until late fall when the birds starting arriving again. Not really needed during the summer period when there's lots of other food around. And one advantage of that is a lot of Niger seed crops unfortunately get weed seed, and sometimes the Niger seed itself will sprout. So, which just means you have more weeding that you have to do. Mixed seed, you want to go with no corn if you can. So be wary of the cheaper seed blends because they also might include more weed seeds. And what I typically do is I buy a large bag of a mixed seed and a bag of sunflower seed, and then I add sunflower seed mix to enrich that mixed seed. And so each time I take out 2 scoops of the mix, I then add 1 more scoop of the sunflower seed into it and just stir it up a little bit. And that way you have a good rich mixed seed, and then of course I have the sunflower seed feeders as well.
So forsythia, this is another very popular common shrub throughout Canada. It's very hardy. It blooms before it gets the leaves. So it's a very early bloomer. And as I said, that bright color does attract birds to the yard. Even though they're not flowers that the birds seem to enjoy, they see the color and they're heading into the yard to figure out what's going on, explore, and then of course they find the bird feeders.
So here's that dark-eyed junco that I was talking about. Very common. Prefers seed on the ground, but does use the feeders to some degree. Usually, particularly during the migration period, you can get often flocks of them where you might have 10 or 20 in the yard. it's year-round, but with seasonal peaks and valleys. And this, in our area, we actually have two subspecies. This is a picture of the Oregon subspecies, which has a dark head, the brown back, and has rusty sides. But our other subspecies is called the slate colored subspecies, and it is slate colors Junco, and it is all gray. So.
Okay. So barberry, I'm sure we are all also familiar with barberry. It's one of those shrubs the deer won't typically touch. It's very, very thorny. It's super hardy, and it does come in this reddish color and a very light kind of a lime green shade. The berries last throughout the winter, and you can see the little berries in the top photograph there, and the birds do enjoy those berries as well.
Another relatively common bird is the Cassin's finch. It's quite similar looking in the male to the house finch, which also is a very regular bird that comes to feeders. And the big difference is the male has this bright red crown on it, and versus the duller red of the house finch. Primarily sunflower seed eater, and again, if you get them coming to your yard, they'll end up coming in often in flocks, so you can have 4, 6, sometimes even 10 at a time. And they will mix with the house finch as well, just so you can see the two difference.
Mock orange. We did plant a mock orange. It's very, very fragrant. It's also a hardy shrub. Doesn't need a whole lot of pruning. It blooms in white, as you can see here, and the fragrance, again, is very attractive to the birds. It doesn't really produce much in the way of bird-friendly berries. It does produce some, but the birds tend to leave it alone. But again, it's very lovely to see, and it's got a beautiful fragrance for the yard.
Here's a species that, of course, everybody would know, and this is our red-shafted flicker. It's all season, larger woodpecker, enjoys the sunflower seed and, of course, the suet. And they can nest in your yard if you have an old tree that has a hole in it for them, or just makings of a hole, and sometimes they even make their own hole. We have a friend who has a pair that nested in their yard and got to have babies looking at them for a season. So.
Tamarix. This one may not be quite as familiar to many people. It grows very tall. I've seen them in the neighborhood of, I would say 15 feet tall. They have very fine, graceful fronds, so you can kind of see the leaf structure there in the bottom photograph. And the flowers are pink and very fluffy. They almost look like little bursts of smoke. It grows very quickly, and they're great for a soft privacy screen or a bit of a, they add depth to the yard, and they can act as a lovely focal point within a yard.
This is our red costbill, quite common in the region. Up until this spring, they actually were very irregular visitors to our yard. But this spring, we've actually had them pretty much every week for about the last 6-8 weeks now. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2. Sometimes it's been a flock of about 10. The female is yellow and the male is red, because you can see both there. And there's also a pine siskin in the photo between the two of them, just so you can see the size difference as well.
And what do they eat, Rob?
Primarily sunflower seed in the yard, but one of their big things is they like breaking open spruce and pine cones. So that's where you usually see them, is on the top of a big spruce tree, where they're getting the seeds out of their cones.
Fuchsia. Most people will know these by their other name, coral bells, because they have bell-shaped flowers on these long flower spikes. So they're originally a native woodland plant, native to Canada. Of course, they've been hybridized to get the different colors. Normally they're green in the wild. So they come in many colors, as you can see by the photograph. They do like shadier areas, and these were one of the plants that found it too hot next to the house where the sunlight was reflecting. So we did have to move them away from that area to a shadier spot. But again, they have the tubular bell-shaped type flowers, so hummingbirds are attracted to those.
Another colorful regular visitor is our evening grosbeak. This is a male, and you know it's that bright yellow stripe across its head, the golden orange of the yellow of the rest of the body, and the white and the black on the wings. It likes being with that large bill. It has trouble often getting seed out of the tubular feeders, so it prefers the platform feeders or feeding off the ground. And of course, with that big bill, it can crack open sunflower seeds without any issue. And even the non-black oil sunflower seeds it'll go for. One thing that really helped our yard is putting in a bird bath, or some, other people might do some other sort of water feature. The first year it was kind of a little bit quiet, not too much came to it. But once we had it heated in the wintertime, it's pretty much been a constant visitation. Water always will attract birds, especially in this dry climate that we have here. So you have to keep regularly filling it, which can be an issue depending on how far it is from your house, or whether your hose is, your taps can have winter water. And they also have to be cleaned very, very regularly. Because unfortunately, birds aren't the cleanest, and they poop and drop seeds in the water, and so you have to, change. Typically, I'm changing the water, if not daily, every other day, and scrubbing out the bird bath at least once a week, just to make sure that nothing is building up in there, because of course then you don't want to be developing salmonellas and other bacterial infections and things like that. And you can just use soap, and it doesn't matter if there's a little residue left in the because you're going to dilute it with the water anyway. And Top Crop does sell this little ring heater that you just plug into the off an extension cord, and it keeps the water at about 4 degrees Celsius in the winter, preventing any formation of ice. And so even when it was minus 20 outside, there was fresh water for the birds.
Dogwoods. Dogwoods are native plants. They come in several color varieties. Plain green leaves. This particular one, and the one we chose, was a variegated, so with the white edging, again, just to brighten up the garden area. It brings a little bit more interest into the yard with that variegated coloring. And the black lace elder, most people use this as a focal point plant or a specimen plant. They're strictly ornamental, although they do get little berries. I haven't personally seen the birds eat the berries, so I'm not certain that they do. It's got very lacy, very interesting foliage, and an intense dark color. And of course, lovely, lovely, large, flat clusters of pink flowers. Bugbane, something that some people may not be too familiar with. It's also known as black cohosh or snake root. It has a very open, again, fairly lacy leaf structure. And in the bottom picture, you'll see the long white spires of flowers. It is known to repel insects, and that's the name bugbane. It is the bane of bugs' lives.
So this is, it's only been seen it only during our spring migration. It doesn't really hang out in the yard, but this is a catbird. And it's partly because it can make mewing-like sounds. It's usually found in bushy areas along near water courses, primarily an insect eater, so it will scratch in the mulch for looking for insects. But it's come through our yard a couple of years in a row now, and it was just a nice shot that I got. So.
Mhm. And that brown thing that runs across the photograph, that's part of our irrigation system. That's one of the water pipes. I do cover it with mulch, and the birds keep uncovering it as they scratch through the mulch. So yeah, my job with that is ongoing. Sumac. Sumac is an interesting plant. It's commonly found wild in eastern Canada. I haven't myself seen it wild in western Canada. It offers beautiful fall color with these big, interesting, soft, fluffy red seed pods. Sumacs can quickly overtake a garden. They're very, very robust growers, so we chose a dwarf variety, and I think I may have to prune this one a little bit going forward. Not yet, but in the future, I expect I'll be pruning it back a little bit.
This one's a rare visitor. This is the gray-crowned rosy finch. Um, it's more of a high altitude species. We're also kind of towards the northern end of its range. You can see that it's got that finch bill. It likes, so it's a big seed eater, this gray face. And um, I've had them a couple times, but not very often. I know some friends who have them came to their feeders quite regularly this winter. So if you're lucky enough to get them, that's just a nice bird that you might get coming to your yard.
Caragana. Caragana is also known as pea shrub. It's extremely hardy. Comes in both standard or tree-like varieties and something that's more like a shrub. So this is the photograph of a shrubby variety. They do get lovely, small, very small yellow flowers, but the entire shrub will be covered in flowers in the spring. It does produce seed pods. The birds seem to leave those seed pods alone because they're not soft, fleshy berries that are easy to eat. So the pods just fall to the ground, but they're still quite striking in the garden.
Another uncommon visitor we have is called the Harris sparrow. You've seen this one here was in the fall and it's kind of molt stage. Some have overwintered here, so you can often get them at your feeders in the wintertime. They're often confused with the house sparrow because of that black chest that you can see evidence of on this particular one. But the big difference is, of course, it has a brightly colored bill. So, and one of the things like that Caragana bush that Carolyn was talking about is, of course, these all provide cover for the birds, and the flowers, of course, bring in insects. So, which helps bring in other varieties of birds as well, because even most seed eaters will eat insects and caterpillars. So, of course, a little, maintenance needs to be done on your bird feeders. Keeping them clean is very important. So I store my feed in a metal garbage can, keeps the feed dry, and also deters anything like mice and chipmunks from getting into the can. So, because you don't want those rodents, of course, getting into your house and things like that as well. You need to clean your feeders every week or two. So make sure you just empty it out. Partly just to make sure that there's nothing, if it's been rainy, that there's no molds or mildews growing. And when I'm changing the feed, I spread the old seed underneath the shrubs and bushes. Yeah, it does potentially increase the weeding, but it does help, keeps those things like the towhees and other sparrows that don't really like to come out into the open so much happy. And again, just dish soap and a brush to clean the base of the feeders is all you need. So the ones that can come apart are the better ones to purchase versus ones that are all plastic.
Muckle plum. Muckle plum is an ornamental plum tree. The photographs here indicate that it's a fairly large tree. Again, we went with a more dwarf variety of this, and ours just finished blooming. So spectacular when it's in full bloom with lots and lots of very showy pink spring blossoms. Ours is not old enough to know whether or not it produces small berries or small plum-like fruit. I'm expecting probably next year we'll see some fruiting going on, because the one we planted is just a youngster yet.
So here's another rare visitor. This is a black-headed grosbeak, so it's related to the evening grosbeak. Call is similar to a robin, and this one is very migratory. So you only get it during the migration periods typically, but you can see its colorings as well.
The Toba hawthorn. So hawthorn trees are native to Canada, mostly I believe in the east, but there are a few here. And the University of Manitoba developed a prairie hardy hawthorn tree, so they call it the Toba after Manitoba. It's very hardy. It has clouds of tiny pink blossoms, and you can see those in the bottom photograph there. It's a little bit unclear, but they're very lovely. They're quite fluffy looking. And again, this tree does produce some small berries.
I'll be quick on this one. This is not a great shot because it's through the window, but I was talking to you about the common redpoll being similar to the siskin and the goldfinch. And the main thing is it does actually have a little bit of a red cap on the top of it. And it's one of these ones that really likes Niger seed. And this bird only winters in this region. And it's not even that common to start very much. It's more on the prairies, but we do get flocks of them around. But you'll usually find them with the pine siskins and goldfinches in the wintertime coming to your feeders if they're around on that particular year.
And if you're having trouble spotting it, it blends in so well with the ground. It's pretty much right in the center of that frame, but it's very well camouflaged. So columnar cedars, I'm sure we've all seen these in different applications throughout. They were kind of the foundation of our yard renovation. As I said, there was some large ones in the yard when we inherited this backyard. The birds inhabit the cedars year-round. They're great protection in the winter because they're just so dense. We've got several different birds going in and out with nesting material right now, so they're nesting in there. And when it's rainy or windy, they pop in there and they shelter, and they're very, very protected.
And this is one of my highlight birds, the northern pygmy owl. Here it's sitting on one of our shepherd's hooks that we have our feeders hanging from. Now, the thing about these is that they do feed on small birds. So one of the things in nature is that if you attract birds to your yard, you're also going to attract predators to your yard. So we do a fairly good job at chasing away the feral cats. And then we certainly don't chase away this guy. And so if you've had one visiting your yard, the birds may stay away for a couple days after the owl is visited, because they'll come and sit in your yard for a couple hours totally undisturbed. So, and the next slide.
And it was a lovely, lovely surprise to see this owl sitting in the backyard.
And that's looking at it from when it's got its head turned back towards the camera. So you can kind of notice that it kind of like has eyes in the back of the head just to make things a little more interesting for that bird. So, all right. So that's kind of the end of our presentation. If anybody really is interested, if you can see the full list of what we have for species that we've seen in the yard, but we don't need to go through that that's just for those who want to look afterwards when they look at the presentation offline later on.
And Rob's got it broken down to regularly occurring birds, uncommon visitors, and relatively common ones, rare yard visitors, etc. So it's quite a comprehensive list. We did not discuss every one of them, and nor were there pictures of everyone that's been in the yard, or we'd be here till midnight. Oops, sorry about that.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Caroline and Rob. We've got a couple questions that have been posed in the chat that I want to get to. And then if anybody wants to add some questions asking out loud, you can unmute yourself and I will. You'll be able to get a chance to talk. We've got about 8 minutes left, so hopefully we can get some spiffy answers and get through everybody's questions today. So. The first question is from Stuart Wilson, and he's asked if you guys have had any problems with predators, such as raptors or cats, squirrels stealing the seeds. Has that been a problem for you?
We have not had squirrels in the yard, probably because we're in Marysville. There's lots and lots of trees and natural feed for the squirrels, so we have not had any squirrel issues. We have had a couple of feral cats. There's a few wild cats around, and we've been able to scare them away by spraying them with the hose when we see them. And I do use some Critter Ritter spray just on the bottom of the fence, and that seems to deter the cats from coming into the yard. Since I've been using that, we haven't really seen any cats. As for other animals, well, of course, the raccoon. So they do ransack the feeders, and we were able to scare that one off, and it hasn't come back. It was back 3 or 4 times over the course of 1 week last year, and we have not seen the raccoon since.
We did have skunks once or twice, but again, I think we're in our yard active enough, especially we also have a hot tub in the yard, so we're in there quite a bit in the evenings. So that seems to have deterred the skunks from visiting too much. But yeah, I mean, we certainly have had chipmunks and mice and some of the other predatory type birds. We've had like sharp-shinned hawks, shrikes, of course, the pygmy owl. They've all come into the yard, and I mean, if you have activity like that, even crows and ravens will come through looking to find anything that they may be able to find, and they will also, of course, if they seem to notice that if you've had a bird that's happened to hit a window or a wall, I've noticed them, they come in and they just notice that, oh, there's one there, and they pick it up and take it away and help do the cleanup. So we do maintain everything that, everything happens.
As a follow-up to the story of the raccoon and the skunks, Stuart's wondering whether you have a game camera at night to see those evening visitors.
Well, funny you should ask. We were just discussing that. We don't have one right now, but there may be one in our near future.
Okay, thank you. And Wayne asked a question as well. He's saying that he lives with the community forest in Cranbrook in his back, and he's looking to find some perennials in the garden that are deer resistant. Do you have any suggestions?
See, in our backyard, because of the fence, we don't have to worry about deer, so we had full range of what we could select. In the front, of course, barberry, the deer tend not to touch those. We've been kind of struggling with shrubs that are deer resistant in the front yard. Daffodils, they tend not to eat. We've got our rhubarb in the front. They eat the leaves, but not the stalks, which is kind of silly. Yeah, that's a tough one because if they're hungry enough, deer are going to eat anything.
Even stuff that when you're things are advertised as being deer resistant when you go into places, and they don't go to those types of plants wholeheartedly. but if it's a really rough winter, they still will go for them. We have the thorny bushes and more fragrant type things. Some of the like the Russian sage and thyme sometimes deter them a bit. But we have in our front yard, we have a flowering plum and viburnums and fire bushes, and every year the deer prune them back for us. So that it saves a little bit on the pruning outside that they're not very good at shaping.
Yeah, the folks at Top Crop are very knowledgeable, and if you're looking for shrubs or perennials that are deer resistant, we ask a ton of questions at Top Crop, and we have never been steered wrong there. So that they're just a great resource. They know the area, they know what lives here, and they've got good experience as to what's reasonably deer resistant.
We also have a comment from Ian in the chat suggesting porcelain flowers as a surefire deer resistant.
They would definitely be deer resistant.
We have time for one more question if anybody would like to unmute themselves or to type something up in the chat. And if nobody else has some questions, I do have one. So I'm not seeing anybody unmuting themselves there. I wonder if you have any difficulty with pigeons, or if that's just something in Cranbrook. I, for one, cannot get rid of pigeons, and I don't even have birdseed out.
Pigeons tend to be, I believe, more of a city bird or a farm bird. We have not really had pigeons in the yard at all. No.
And I do have another question right here, maybe more so for Rob. Kristen is looking for a good birding book, if you have any recommendations.
The one that I recommend is Sibley's Guide to Birding. It's Sibley. That's kind of our, there is a Western version, but it's not that much cheaper than the full version, so you might as well get the full North American version. Thanks for typing that in.
Yes, that's in the chat if anybody's looking for that book. I just added it there. Okay, well, we if we don't have any other questions for Rob and Caroline, we'll have this Ed Talk come to a close. You had a lot of great information on your slides, and I wonder if you would be okay with sending me a copy of those slides, and then for people who attended the talk who want to have a little bit more information about the birds they might want to look out for, and the plants that you have planted, we can send them out to them. Would that be okay, Rob and Caroline?
Absolutely.
That'd be fine.
So if you were interested in getting a copy of the slideshow that Caroline used today, you can send email to me. I'll put my email in the chat, and I will get that out to you so that you can read it at your own leisure and use it as a resource. So my email is in the chat for anybody who would like a copy of that. And now I'd just like to close off the presentation by thanking everybody so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate your presence, and we hope to see you again next week when Stuart Wilson will be talking about a broader space that is the community's Elizabeth Lake and how we can protect the nature that is around us in our community today. I'd also like to take a moment to direct you all to the June 2nd screening of a film about some local farmers that the History Center and Wildsight will be hosting the premiere of on June 2nd. It's called New Roots, and if you're interested in attending, I will also drop the link to register for that in the chat. That's June 2nd, same time as this one. So basically all of your Wednesdays are busy for the next couple weeks. You are welcome. So without further ado, thank you so much, Rob and Caroline and everybody for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.